Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Hey guys, Sue from 1A Auto, and today we're putting in this left front wheel bearing in this 2012 Grand Sport Corvette. This is the factory. This one came from 1AAuto.com. I like it actually better than the factory one. It's the sealed bearing. They both have sealed bearings, but this is like a GM Universal. It has splines for a front CV shaft. Well, last time I checked, Corvette doesn't have front CV shafts. So this is a mass productive part, and the 1A Auto one is a nice sealed. Now there's no way of water getting in there or sitting, and I don't know, it just gives me a better feeling inside. Both come with the ABS ring and sensor. They're part of it, it's sealed, so you can't change them separately. If you need this part or any other parts for your car, come on over to 1AAuto.com. We're going to start by removing our lug nuts by hand while the weight of the vehicle is on the ground. I'm just going to loosen them up. This is a 19mm socket. I have a thin profile socket because the alloy rims on this really get some narrow seating. Now with those all hand loose, I'm going to raise the vehicle, support it. First thing I'm going to do the wheel bearing is I'm going to remove the caliper, and I'm not going to do the caliper to bracket. I'm going to remove the bracket to knuckle. This is a 21mm socket. Once I get the bolts all the way out, I'm going to use a bungee cord, and I'm going to support this caliper on the top control arm. I don't want it to hang down with the flex hose. Let me get my bungee cord ready. I just want to sit firmly up there and not fall down. Now I can remove my rotor. Now a quick visual to the wheel bearing mounting bolts to the knuckle. They're a T55 torque head. First procedure I'm going to do is unplug the ABS sensor. Push that connector aside. Then I have an actual mounting bracket here, which I have to pull the line out from the bracket because I have to remove the lower ball joint. So I want to get that up and out. Now I have clear access to remove the nut on my ball joint, which is a 21mm. So to start taking the wheel bearing out, I have to take the knuckle out, upper and lower ball joint and the tie rod end, because the manufacturer puts one torque spit head right at 6 o'clock behind the ball joint stud. So in order to take that out properly and being able to torque it to 96 foot-pounds after, the knuckle needs to be on a bench. So we're going to start with removing the tie rod end, and that is an 18mm socket. move to a lower ratchet, smaller one. It's a little overkill for that. The Corvette, everything is aluminum. The knuckle's aluminum, so you need, and the upper control arm's aluminum and lower is. So you need a special tool to remove the ball joints. You have to basically press them out. You can't hit them with a hammer. You could damage the aluminum knuckle, and that wouldn't be a good thing. So now with the nut off, I'm going to use a tool. It's going to go in here. It's going to press this down. So now I'm going to take the removal tool and I'm going to tap it in with a rubber mallet till it's positioned correctly. I'm going to hand snug this. Okay. See how good she works. Wow, that was almost too easy to be true. So now the tie rod end's out of the way. I'm going to lower it, take the nut out of the lower ball joint and take the nut out of the upper ball joint. I'm going to put a support on my lower control arm so that when the fiberglass spring pushes down, I don't want this to drop, the suspension to drop. So I'm going to support that up. Take both of them out. Now with an 18mm socket, I'm going to remove the upper ball joint nut. And then I'm going to remove the lower ball joint nut. I just want to move them off, both of them, take both the nuts off. So now I'm just going to use a ratchet wrench and take this upper ball joint nut off. And then I'm going to, with a 21mm socket, I'm going to take the lower ball joint nut off. I'm going to reposition where I have left the caliper. I'm going to move it on down to the side here. When I bring it down, I'm going to use a jack instead of a jack stand because I want to be able to have control of moving this back up and down. So now I'm going to put the tool in the upper ball joint. I use just a rubber mallet to hammer it in. Gotta say, I'm loving this tool. Okay, I'm going to jack it up a little bit, see if I can. Ooh. No, that's going to come out. When this comes out, I can lift it right up. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to use a pickle fork to separate the lower ball joint from the knuckle because my separation tool that I used on the other two is not high enough to get up to the stud. So the problem with the pickle fork is you have to be careful because of the sharp edges, and you don't want to destroy the boot because this ball joint's staying in. So I sprayed it with penetrating spray and I've guided it in. I used a flathead pry bar to push down on the boot so it's free from the tips of the pickle fork. So therefore I won't puncture it. And I'm going to use a rubber mallet because this isn't about brute force, it's about finesse on this particular design. Looks good. Looks good on paper, boss. Now with both the upper and lower ball joint free from the knuckles, the actual control arms. I'm going to pull the knuckle out. And there I have the ball joint. I mean, not sorry, the wheel bearing. And I have the T55 heads that have to come off. Okay, so if I had a vise, I would install this in a vise and use it in a hand ratchet to take these out. Unfortunately, I don't have a vise right here, so I'm gonna do my dangest to use my body leverage, and it's working. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that it worked. I should be able to take these out by hand now. Now see, the factory has Threadlocker on here. So I'm going to take a wire wheel or a wire brush to this, clean this up, and I'm going to reapply Threadlocker. Probably going to need a little bit of a tap of a hammer to slam this out. First I'm going to disconnect my, oh, look at this. I take that back. You're not going to need anything like that. So I just have to take my clip off. And there's the culprit. If you could feel it, you'd feel it's like got a flat spot on it. Right there. Binds up, spin, binds up, spins. So this has a growl when it went down the road. Didn't have any play, but it also did send off a ABS code for the left front speed sensor. Now I'm going to reassemble the new sealed bearing on the knuckle. So I'm going to locate where the bracket went for the ABS connector. That went between the tie rod end, knuckle part, and the upper ball joint. So I'm just going to fish my wire through. I'm going to line up the bolt holes. Before I even attach this, I'm going to just hand tight my mounting bolts. Now I already took the liberty of putting Threadlocker on here. I like to load them up because you never can be too safe. These are going to be torqued to 96 foot-pounds. And once again, it's a T55 Torx head. Okay, here we go. We're going to torque it. I preset my torque wrench to 96 foot-pounds. And I'm going to hope for the best here. Let's hope. No, we're gonna have to find a solution because there's no way I can get it up to 96 without a vise, I think. raining. Holy moly, we did it. Okay, so there's the one, and I'll torque the other ones when it's in there. So what I'm gonna do here is I torqued the lower torque head, the T30, the T55, sorry, head on the ground. You saw how scary it was, but we got that done. So now when the ball joint stud goes up through, this is all torqued. We're going to torque these other two to the 96 foot-pounds in the vehicle. We'll have better leverage. At this point, I'm going to inspect my boot, make sure it didn't tear. Same with the lower one. We're good. So I'm going to reinstall the knuckle. I'm going to line up the lower stud and line up the top stud. Drop them down in. The sensor, I'm going to mount now before I forget. Clips on like that, facing that way. Put the lower nut on. And the upper. The top is 18mm socket and the lower is 21. Let's hope the stud's not moving, which it is. Okay, so now we have the studs moving on both the lower and the upper stud for the ball joint. The studs are spinning in place because there's no pressure on them. On the cone-shaped stud, they do have an Allen socket, so you can hold that stud and lower the nut down. I have to use an open-end wrench. So now I have to use a 21mm wrench on the bottom, and the Allen head is a 6mm Allen head for the lower ball joint stud. And I'm just gonna hopefully be able to bottom this out. The torque on it, believe it or not, this torque is 22 foot-pounds and then additional 180 degrees. So I'd write that down. 22 foot-pounds and an additional 180 degrees for the lower ball joint. The top ball joint nut is 22 foot-pounds and an additional 120 degrees. So 180 additional on the bottom, 120 on the top. Okay, I'm going to torque these to the 22 foot-pounds. The top one. I preset my torque wrench. And the lower one, the knuckle's going to spin this way. Sorry, cameraman. All right, and then I'm going to torque this to 22 foot-pounds. Now with the bottom in this position, I'm going to go get my dial indicator, and I'm going to tighten this an additional 180 degrees. So here I have a mechanical dial indicator for my degrees that I'm going to be turning. So the black line, I'm going to line it up at 0. And when I turn the socket, it's going to turn with it. This is going to hold still. This is going to be mounted against something, and that's going to turn all the way down to 180. And I'll know that I'm there. Stop back at 0. When I put this on, I'm mounting this Allen socket. Well, it's like a keyway. So that keyway is going to be hitting the knuckle so that the dial doesn't actually move. And here we go. there I am at 180. So there I am at 180 for the lower ball joint. Now I'm going to repeat the process on the top ball joint, but it's going to be going to 120. So I'm going to be stopping at 120. Change it over to an 18mm socket, and apparently lay on my back. Oh boy. I'm gonna have to get down there and set it up. This is what I call, I'm having real fun now. Okay, I'm on 0. And let's hope that the ratchet gets in here. I don't think it's gonna now. And of course not. So, this is life. This is what we're gonna run into. I'm gonna take this out. So I cannot use my dial indicator on the top, so I'm gonna have to go real old school and trust in my math. And I'm gonna do 120, which 90 is obviously a quarter, and then another 2/3 of a turn will be 120. So once I get to a quarter turn, I'm just gonna go that extra little 2/3 and ballpark it. I'm sure that, you know, the manufacturer, when they put these specs in for 180 to 120 degrees, they know that there's gonna be a bit of a variance. Okay, so let's see here what a quarter turn will be. From here, a quarter turn will be here. So I'm gonna have to do 2 of these, right? 1 to here, then to here. That should be a quarter. So I'm gonna do it 3 times. Maybe another. So there you have it. We're going to hope for the best on that one. Sorry. Now, this is what happens when you're, you're working on jacks. You're giving it an honest effort here. You know that this is safe, and as many turns as I did that, I know that that's going to be safe. I'm not worried about it. All right. So now that I know my ball joints are in, they're tight and done, I'm going to torque the other torque head wheel bearing bolts to 96 foot-pounds. Wow, I was that close on the floor. Beautiful. Now we're ready to install the tie rod end, the ABS sensor, caliper, rotor, and then wheel. I'm gonna raise it up so we can get off our knees. Now with the knuckle in place and my upper and lower ball joint torqued down and tightened and my wheel bearing mounting bolts tightened and torqued, I'm gonna install my tie rod in. There is, I looked, I couldn't find any manufacturer's specifications for the torque on this. So the nut is the same as the upper ball joint. So I'm gonna torque this down to 22 foot-pounds, and then I'm gonna give it an additional 90 degrees turn, just to bottom it out. It's a tapered stud, and it's a self-locking nut. Going the wrong way. Okay, I'm going to tighten that now to 22 foot-pounds. And now I'm going to personally give it an additional 90-degree turn. It actually felt real good. It kind of stopped me. I felt it. I worked with it, you know. So now I'm going to rerun the ABS wires, and I'm going to put some high temp never sees here on the hub, replace my rotor, then the calipers go on. That clip goes there, runs around the back here, and it's going to go. There's one bracket here on the ground, on the back, and that clicks in. So before I put my rotor on, I'm just going to put some high temp anti-seize paste on here. I don't want this steel rotor getting stuck on the hub. Just a light coat. Just helps with the future brake job. Okay, now we're ready to put the rotor on. So I'm going to look and make sure there's no rust or debris on the mounting surface area. Look clean. I'm going to place it on there. This is where I like to take a couple of lug nuts. I'm just going to put one on hand tight. Just stops that rotor from wobbling around while I try to mount that caliper. So now I'm going to turn it so that we can look at it, see it a lot better. Now the caliper mounting bolts, they have Threadlocker on them also. So I'm going to take a wire brush to them, clean them up, put my Threadlocker on there, and then install them. Now I'm going to install my caliper. Line up the pads. Give it a quick wiggle around. Slide it down. I took the liberty, like I said, I cleaned out the old thread lock and I added some new. This is a 21mm socket and the torque on this is 129 foot-pounds. Caliper to knuckle bolts. The nice thing about working on the Corvette is everything is lightweight. The rotor actually weighs more than the knuckle. So this caliper looks big, but because it's aluminum, it's easy to work with. It's very lightweight. I'm just going to bottom them out with a ratchet, and I'm going to do the 129 foot-pounds. I've already preset my torque wrench. And now we're ready to put the wheel on, take it for a road test. All right, now I'm going to mount the wheel on. Just going to hand tight the lug nuts. I'm going to snug them up. Then I'm going to lower the car down to the ground and torque them to 100 foot-pounds. I'm going to clear my ABS code and I'm going to road test it. Always in a star pattern. When you tighten this wheel up, the lug nuts. Okay. I'm not going to put the whole vehicle pressure on. I'm just going to put enough on so that the wheel won't turn, and I can tighten the wheel lugs to 100 foot-pounds. I just like to bottom them all out before I torque them. This just reassures me I have a nice even seat with the rotor hub to wheel. Okay, now I'm ready to torque it. One more time and it'll be done. And there we go.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.